Hi everybody, it's Caitlin at Caitlin's Corner, finally back for a new video. Right, so I know it's been so long since I've posted a video. I've been busy and I've been stressing about the election, which, needless to say, did not go where I wanted it to. I'm busy, I'm sorry. I'm back. I haven't even been able to watch videos from people. I have a month at least. I haven't been able to read much for these first 10 days, but I was lucky enough to be able to read 21 books for the month of October, including my SBOOKTOBER books, which is what I'm going to be reviewing right now because that's super overdue. And yeah, I can't remember if I already said this, but I just woke up, so that's why I'm wearing this hat, because my hair looks really bad. And I love Halsey, so, and yeah, so I'm just gonna start. Spooktober, the first book that we all read was The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. I ended up giving this between 3.5 and 4 stars. I wasn't really sure which one, because the main difference for me between the 3.5 and the 4 was my enjoyment level, and I didn't enjoy the story as much as I was hoping. If you don't know, The Haunting at Hill House is basically about a group of people that are all brought together by one man to live in a house that is said to be haunted and check it out, and that's essentially the premise for the novel. The thing about this book, the cool thing about Shirley Jackson is that whenever you read her books or her short stories or whatever, it isn't until the very end that you really get a grasp of what is going on, because in this novel in particular, it wasn't until the last chapter that everything you thought you knew was just thrown out the window, and it was so cool. But up until that point, I was kind of about it. So I mean, looking back on it, because it's been, a couple of weeks since I've read it, I would probably give this a 3.5 star. 3.5 stars. By the way, I don't have all the copies of the books that I read here with me because they were library books and I had to return them. So I'm going to try and put a picture of the books I'm talking about next to my face over here somewhere. If I can't figure out how to do that, then I guess this was just me gesturing at nothing. So the second book was a book featuring a Halloween creature, and I decided to read Troll by JOHANNA SINISALO. What this book is about is a guy comes home drunk one night, and he sees a bunch of kids kicking and terrorizing this troll outside of his house. And so he scares the kids off, and he takes the troll into his house, and the troll is pretty badly injured, so he keeps trying to restore it to its health. And it kind of just goes from there as the narrator becomes more and more attached to the troll, and it's called a love story, for a reason. A super fast-paced book. Well, at least it was for me. I read it in one sitting. There were a lot of different narrators, which I really like when books do that well, because you get this whole well-rounded, view of the story. This is unlike anything I've ever read. Sometimes you read books and you're like, oh, this is kind of similar to something I've read before. But this was just totally unique, and I really appreciate that. This was translated from Finnish. The author is, I guess, pretty popular there. I'm not personally too sure, and this is the only one, don't quote me on that, that's been translated, and I wish more had been translated because I really enjoyed this. It's kind of weird in parts, which I mean, it was good for the Halloween season. It's fascinating because there were also, within the different points of view, there were inserted passages from novels that contributed to the story, fictional novels and actual folklore regarding trolls, and it was so cool. The qualm with this is that I know what the ending of the book means, and I know what it meant for me symbolically, but also I don't know what the main point that the author was trying to get across was, because I feel like there were a few things you could have taken from this and really figure out what was the big idea, which is fine, but I don't know. I ended up giving this 4 stars out of 5. 4 out of 5. Book was a book with fall colors on the cover, and I decided to do Sphere, The Form of Emotion by A.R. AMMONS. It's a book of poetry. It's not an actual book of poetry. It's one really, really, really long poem that takes up the entire book, which is about 80 pages. I decided to stop after I was about 50% into this because I could not get into it at all. It was very dense. The writing was very dense. And it kind of reminded me of Tender Buttons by Gertrude Stein. I don't know if any of you know that, but Tender Buttons is kind of very weirdly written. Not weird, very uniquely written, and it takes like a certain kind of person to appreciate it, and like I can definitely appreciate what the writer was doing here, and like maybe it gets better after the first half, but I could not finish this, which is disappointing because usually I always finish poetry books, but like this was just, it was too much, and I figure if you're at a point where you're forcing yourself to get through a book, it's just not worth it. I ended up giving this 2 out of 5 stars. I mean, there were some pretty cool lines in the first half, but just not my thing, unfortunately. Book 4 was a book written by an iconic horror author. I was going to read Cujo by Stephen King, but I did not get to that one. It was a scary book and movie adaptation. I started reading The Turn of the Screw by Henry James, but I had to return it to the library. I got about halfway through. I wasn't crazy about it from what I did read, but I really like to read the whole thing because I do like Henry James, but I feel like I enjoy his short stories more than his longer fiction. But the book was a spooky graphic novel, and I read the graphic novel authorized adaptation of Ray Bradbury's Something Wicked This Way Comes. Essentially, the story is this kind of like a carnival comes to town, and it's kind of shady and it's very strange, and these 2 kids are best friends. They live right next door. They try and go explore, and they see some very not possible things going on at the carnival, so they basically just get involved in the scandal going on with it. And it's crazy about this. I feel like it's hard for me to rate this because I really never read graphic novels except for I've read Persepolis, which I really loved. I feel like it's hard because for me the main problem with this is that I had a lot of trouble following it. Like I had so much trouble following what was going on, and I don't know if it was the format or the way I was reading it or whatever, but it was not easy for me to get into the story and really appreciate it. So I ended up giving this 3 out of 5 stars. Maybe this would be different if I actually read the traditional, Something Wicked This Way Comes, but who knows. The book was a book in a spooky setting, and I decided to read Project 17 by LAURIE STOLARZ. Essentially, there's a kid who he doesn't have a lot going for him. He's a senior in high school and he's not doing well with his grades, but he really likes film, and so he finds a contest where if you submit a film and they choose it, you get like the rights to it and you get to produce it, and it gets to become like an actual film, and like you get, I can't remember if there was like prize money or anything or like some sort of scholarship, but like, essentially like the kid realizes, oh, this is my big chance, so he gets a group of people together that he knows or that volunteer that need to be there or whatever, and they all go to this asylum that's going to be torn down to spend the night and film and explore. So disappointing. This is one of the most disappointing books I've read in a long time. The story itself was super predictable. I feel like I've seen this story a million times over, and this brought nothing new to the table with it. Themselves literally fit into tropes, which I did not like. Like, there was the theater girl, and there was the quiet, you know, bookworm girl, and there was, like, you know, the character I described, the main character, who's like, his dad wants him to take over the business, but he doesn't want to, you know, like, it was terrible. It was just not, like, I feel, there's always that fear going into a book that takes place in, like, an asylum, that there's going to be ableist language, but there was too much in here. It was just not, I couldn't do it. Like, I mean, being someone that's very vocal about mental health advocacy, it was just hard to read, you know, these crazies, these psychos. Like, those aren't words that you can use in this context. And, like, I feel like when you're writing characters, it's okay to have them be uneducated and say, like, dumb things like that, but you also have to make it look like they are saying things that are not good. These are just said casually, you know, like a teenager just, like, talking, and that's not cool, because that encourages this negative view of the people that were subjected to asylums, when really it was the system, the way the asylum was run, that really made everything so terrible. So I gave this 1 out of 5 stars. I would not recommend. So that's my Spooktober wrap up. I don't know if I'll do, like, an October video with, like, just the spooky books I read, or, like, all of the books I read. Like I said, so apart from these, I read 14 books, so that would be a super long video. And then, like, maybe I'll have other things to talk about by the time it's been a week or so since I post this video, which I'm going to definitely do today. I don't know. I promise that I'm going to be much better about doing videos. It's been crazy 3 weeks, but I'm back. I'm going to start watching videos again today from all of you guys, because I haven't been able to. And that's it. I'll see you guys really soon. Bye.